So here we are, we're going through the module today. It's going to be focused on a little bit of data analytics to start with, probably about 15-20 minutes or so, and then we'll finish up the last majority going through the serve analysis piece and individuals that weren't able to have their athletes looked at previously. We can try to walk through a bunch of them later, but wanted to really work today on the serve and analytics aspects, because this is one area that there seems to be way more confusion than there should be. Partly because once you get into large numbers and you get into analyzing and reviewing lots of different numbers, you can miss the major aspects sometimes. And in statistics, there's a few things that you need to take into account. One, group mean data, talking about analyzing large data sets, is really, really valuable from a research standpoint. It's really valuable from a coaching perspective when you don't know your athletes. Meaning that if I want to know what the most 14 and under boys at the national level serve like from an analytics standpoint, where do they serve, how hard do they serve, what's their percentages, things like that. That information is super valuable, but it also can potentially create a lot of misinformation if you use group means and apply it to your player, meaning that your player isn't the group mean. If the majority of players serve at 55%, what does that mean? Does that mean you should serve it for your player should serve at 55%, or does that mean you should serve at 65% because you want to be better than the average? Or does 65% first serve mean that you're getting a lot more in potentially, but you're not as effective? So these are the types of questions we ask every day. And I'm being fortunate over the last decade or so to work with a few folks that crunch the numbers on a daily basis. So a lot of this information has come from Tennis Analytics. Warren Pretorius, many of you may know, runs a company that analyzes lots of matches. When we say lots, we're talking hundreds of thousands of points per year at the junior level, at the pro level. And that gives us our large data sets that we can use. We use a lot of Hawkeye data as well to analyze some of that, especially at the pro level. But for every one of you out there, that is useful just to understand, but it's not that valuable for your specific athlete. You have to bring it down to your athlete, your stage, your level. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to walk through a relatively short presentation. This is not going to be that long from a perspective of just want to give you some highlights. We could spend a whole month talking through analytics, because it's an area that I spend a lot of time in. It provides a lot of value for the work that I do, and it should provide a lot of value for coaches. But if you just take snapshots of information, it may get you in more trouble than it helps you with. So when we're talking analytics first, and especially on the serve, let's break it down into pro versus junior, male versus female. That's the easiest way originally to break it down, is those two levels. So if we're looking at here, we're looking at match winners versus losers, because that's really what we want to talk about. If we're looking at ATP data and WTA data. So if you see the individuals, what are their serve percentages for individuals that actually win matches? 63%. Match loser on average is at 62%. So very little variance, meaning that based on, if we go deeper into stats here, there's no significant difference in first serve percentage as a metric of winning and losing matches. When you take large data sets like that, you've got to understand that it doesn't tell you the whole story though. First serve points won, 77% for the winner, 69% for the loser. Pretty significant difference there, which makes sense. If you win more points than you lose on your first serve, you're probably going to win more matches. So that stat is a priority. First serve points won. We want to make sure that we're monitoring that in our players. How about second serve points won? This, we see the exact same percentage difference in match winners versus losers, 8%. So pretty clear. If you win 8% more of your first serve points and 8% more of your second serve points, you're probably going to win more matches than you lose. So those are some really important stats. Again, this is based on 280,000 points just in the last year. So it's a lot of points. So you can feel pretty confident that that gives you a good overall picture of what's happening at the highest levels of the ATP. Aces, you get a slight percentage, 2 to 3% difference in aces in the individuals that win their matches versus individuals that lose. Double faults, you have a slight increase in the max loser scenario there. So that gives you some feedback, but again, it's pretty close. So you, based on this data, how would you analyze it? The only really two big differentiators here are first serve points 1 and second serve points 1. All the other factors really statistically aren't telling you who's going to win or lose matches. First serve percentage, aces, or double faults. So as much as we put value on those, when you look at all the matches over an extended period of time, that by those three metrics, first serve percentage, aces, and double faults, aren't really telling us a lot. Doesn't mean it won't tell us a lot for a single match. So be careful with how you interpret this. You can't come away from this slide, say, these stats, first serve percentage or aces or double faults aren't valuable, because they certainly are, but they're not going to tell you a big percentage of who wins and loses matches when you add it all together. So on a WTA standpoint, what do we see? Pretty much the same thing. You don't see a lot of statistically significant difference outside of first serve points 1 and second serve points 1. So those two are just the same on the men's and women's side. So percentages are a little bit different. Match winners win 68% on average of their first serve points on the WTA, whereas males win 77%. So a big difference in that aspect. Males, of course, win a higher percentage of first serve points than females, but the percentage difference between match winners and losers is the same pretty much between genders. So that's valuable to realize as well. Match losers is an interesting one, 42% on the second serve for the female. So we see a similar differential between first serve winners and losers and second serve winners and losers. So again, some really interesting, useful group mean data here, but just be careful with how you interpret this. This doesn't apply to any individual match, because every individual match is its own entity. It's just like playing roulette at the casino. Just because it has been showing up on black the last 10 spins, that doesn't change the probability on the 11th spin. It still should be 50-50. So understand that from this perspective. So where do they serve? This one is really valuable as a starting point, because if you understand this, then you can start scouting your individual players. And some of the coaches on here do a lot of scouting as part of their role. Many of you may not do any scouting at all. If you're working at the junior development level and you don't even know your players' opponents, you may not be scouting at all. So this, depending on who you are, could maybe really simple and you already know this. And you know this for every player your player is going to play, especially if you play coaching at the highest levels or colleagues. You're going to know this as well on every player that your team is going to play against, and you're going to have this broken down in detail. But again, what, from our standpoint, generally speaking, can we learn from this? So on the men's side, the top two, the left and right on the top of the screen, shows some pretty interesting, from a first serve percentage, you're very evenly split between wide and tee serves, and the body serve is hardly ever used, really. Very rarely, less than 10% of the time, 8 and 6%. On the second serve, numbers change significantly here. We see the body pick up, nearly 30% to the body on the do side, 30% wide and 40% tee. So, more right-handers than not are playing. So that could explain a little bit of that. There's more of a slice type serve possibly being used on that side. On the ad side, we see more the highest percentage being out wide, and that's more than likely a kick serve for most players. So kick body or kick wide is going to be used on the ad. So we see a pretty give or take even split there of T body wide on the second serve on the ATP side. How about on the WTA side? We see this. We see a little bit more body serving going on, little but very similar breakdown really between first serves on the ATP and the WTA regarding location. Not a lot of significant difference there. But do we see a difference on the second serve? So second serve is huge. Notice the middle of the box. So the body serve, 62% out to the ad side, 55% to the do side. I mean, that's significant. You probably, if you're watching matches, you see that. Many of the times they don't have as strong a second serve. Many of the WTA players will slice their second serve over hitting a kick serve, partly because many of them can't hit an effective kick. And also there's some pressure components to this as well, where hitting it in the center of the box gives you a bit more margin. You don't have as much risk involved. But this is where you see a big difference. It's nearly double, give or take, a few percentage points. But the body serve on the second for the WTA. So understand this when you're working with your junior players, if many of you are. How does this look like from your standpoint? So you've got to take that into account and really work on those other serves at a younger age so that the athletes, as they get older and they play at a higher level, will be able to do that. So what we're looking at here is the WTA top 10 players and then overall. So let's look at this from a standpoint of all serves combined, due side, ad side as those broken down. And then we're looking at break point scenarios, game point scenarios, and pressure points. So pressure points is, the situations like 30 all, things like that. So from that perspective, it gives you a better sense of what's happening here. So what are some takeaways from this? There's a lot of info I know on this slide, but you look at the ace locations on average, that gives you a sense of where most aces are served. Second serves made, really, really valuable on the various sides. And then the double fault percentages as well. So again, this data by itself is interesting for a presentation like this because it gives you a lot of info, but it's not that valuable if you're working with Sally, who's 14, and she has to play her match tomorrow. How do you apply this in strategy? How do you also apply this in when it comes down to what types of serves can you hit? Remember that the reason a lot of these serves occur is twofold. One, the player doesn't have the ability or the skill set to hit some other serves, and or their opponents are doing something that's forcing them to hit a certain location. So really, really useful from a standpoint of knowledge, but we've got to break it down into individual players. And we're not doing any individual player analysis because it's different for each match. It's different for each scenario. But these group means discussions hopefully will give you a sense of understanding that you can then start trying to implement some of this with your players in an individual standpoint. You can scout your own players. There's plenty of inexpensive, sometimes free software out there that you can tag your own matches and do this yourself. There's services that'll do this for you as well. So you can send them a full match and they'll break it all down just like this for you with ground strokes as well and a bunch of other things. So depending on who you work with, how advanced you want to get, you just got to be careful on how you interpret it, because interpretation is where, unfortunately, a lot of people have misunderstood how to do it. So here's just broken down, and you can see visually in graph format how some of this looks pretty different. Look at the body serve variations compared to the wide and the tee. See where the aces are served. You wouldn't expect too many body serves to provide aces, but in this situation, we see very evenly split between first serve aces wide and tee. So here's some ATP data. So from this standpoint, let's look at it here. Do we see a big difference? See a little bit of a difference here when it comes to where the aces are served. So from this standpoint, first serve ace, wide 360, T 533. Don't worry about the total number, just more so look at the trend, and you see it's 30 to 40% more being served T on the aces on the men's. We see a very similar thing on the deuce as well. So you're really interesting to see from that standpoint, because what we're seeing is those splits between the ATP and the WTA location and averages. So if you're working on the WTA, you're going to have, or on girls tennis in general, and I know most of you aren't necessarily working, with WTA professionals, but when we say WTA, talking about junior development on the female side, and then ATP on the men's side, on the boys' side, what do you look at? So that's pro data. How about when we look at boys data, which is really interesting. So this is juniors, boys 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, over 100,000 points over the last year. So this is really large data set, largest that I know of available anywhere in the world on junior tennis. So this allows us to have a better sense of what's happening here. And if we're looking through this, just like we did with the ATP and WTA data, we see something a little more interesting here. So we've got an even bigger percentage difference in first serve percentage won. So the people that won matches had a 13% differential between the winners and the losers on average in boys 12s. So that's the highest actually in any level at any gender. So most people don't think the serve is that important in boys 12s, but the data tells us a different story, meaning that the serve may not hit aces, but there is something that it provides that it shows us there's a correlation. Remember, causation and correlation are two different things. Causation is A causes B, and you can prove that there is a causal link, whereas correlation is there is a relationship there that is statistically relevant. So, and you've got to understand the difference there, because it doesn't mean that first serve percentage increase causes you to win, but the people that win potentially serve better. And that's what this data is showing. They may also hit their forehands better, move better, train more hours. There's all these other factors that may relate to it. But we do see a very obvious relationship between first serve points won percentage-wise in the individuals that win matches at the 12s. You see it at the 14s, you see it at the 16s, and you see it at the 18s. And once you get into the 14s to 18s, it's about the same, give or take 0.5%. But there's a bit bigger relevance in the 12s. Everything else, second serve points won, same type of thing. We see a very important relationship there. But everything else is non-significant in most respects. Double fault ratio to second serve, we start seeing something that's showing some interest in the 16s, but again, it drops back in the 18s. So that would tell us that it's probably not that big of an issue. Aces, really not an issue. So aces in all levels don't give us a huge predictor when we're looking at group mean data. But that doesn't mean that John Isner serving 30 aces doesn't give him an advantage, or any player serving 30 aces in a match doesn't give them an advantage. One match, it certainly would. But when we look at the total data from all of this information, aces by itself isn't necessarily what people should be focusing on with training. We should be focusing on improving serving, improving location, improving percentage points won. So that has a lot to do with not only how many unreturnables the person serves, but what's the next shot, the serve plus one, the serve plus two scenarios. So really valuable to look through this and use this hopefully to get you guys thinking about how could you use some of this type of stuff with your players, knowing that they're going to be different. Okay, so the girls' data. This is really interesting as well. Girls 12 serves shows a very similar scenario, even higher percentage difference. So we see a more different scenario here in the 12s for the girls, even more 16% difference between winners and losers on first serve percentage points won, second serve won. So got to understand as the girls get older, the percentages kind of stay similar until the 16s, and then at 18s you see it drop more in line with what we see on the guy side, meaning that the serve's still very important and it still shows a relationship with winning matches, but it drops to 11% give or take, whereas at the younger ages it's actually a higher percentage value. So really, really important there to take that into consideration. Double faults, ratios to second serves, we see that's somewhat significant. It's not as strong as 14%, but a 4-5% relationship is something to keep in mind. So double faults do play more of a role in junior girls tennis, which I think most people on this probably already guessed or saw with their own eyes. But it's also nice to see the data to reinforce that scenario. So if you want more information, again, I wanted to give you a snapshot. I got a couple more resources from Tennis Analytics, but you can reach out directly. They have a bunch of different services that they offer that can tag matches. They work with a lot of pros and a lot of college programs that'll go into way more detail than what we talked about. But again, it's about how are you going to use that data. And during the Q&A next session, we can talk on, or even today, you feel free, we can discuss some of this and how you may go about using this for your players. Because if you don't take into account the analytics side, the technique side only gets you so far, because it's really important to understand that you can get the technique better. And that's what the majority of what we've been talking about. But if you don't know where and when to serve based on a lot of factors, you're going to not optimize the better technique that you're teaching your players. Question here, where should a right-hander serve to get a serve +1? Well, that's a good question. It depends a little bit on what your next ball is that you want. So normally, you're going to assume, and levels dictate this question as well, because the higher levels, usually they can hit all the serves pretty well. So they can hit wide, they can hit body, they can hit tee on a first serve, pretty much just about as easily as any of the other serves. But everyone has a preference. So usually you want to go your favorite serve, whatever you're most comfortable with, at a slightly higher percentage, because you're going to have better outcomes. But if you're trying to run around to hit a forehand, for example, you would probably hit more serves for a right-hander down the tee, because that's going to give you more chances to get the next ball that you want. And that's depending on the level, how you go about making those decisions. But it's challenging because you haven't taken into account necessarily your opponent, because your opponent may start picking up on your tendencies, and then they're going to change their stance and they're going to get a jump on your serve, which may negate the most effective pattern for you. So that's why it's a good question. Where should someone serve to get the next ball that they want? But if you're playing a good player at a higher level, they're going to know that as well, and they're going to be doing whatever they can to avoid giving you that ball that you may want. So that's where it really becomes a discussion. So a question about, if your second serve win percentage needs improvement, should you hit a more aggressive second serve, almost 2 first serves, and live with more double faults? That's a great, great question. And that's something that when you look at the numbers, and I've looked at this for a lot of years, at the highest levels, they should all be serving 2 first serves if you just base it on math. Based on what the numbers tell us, your willingness to take potentially a 5 or 10% reduction in second serve percentage, because you are going to have a reduction if you hit more first serve type scenarios, you're going to have more double faults. But the way the numbers break out, and if you look at it a few different ways, it makes sense for most servers to hit 2 first serves, especially if they're good servers. So the better the server, the more productive that strategy is. The worse the server is, it changes it a little bit based on, but there are other factors, because if your ground strokes are so solid that you never miss from the baseline, then giving up that option to get into points with players by hitting a double fault may not be worth it. But in general, if you look at broad data sets at the highest level, hitting 2 first serves or hitting a first serve and a second serve that is close to a first serve, meaning that you don't have, like, a lot of players have a 20-mile-an-hour differential, sometimes a 30-mile-an-hour differential in first and second serve speed on the ATP Tour. That's a huge differential. Part of it is they're trying to hit kick serves. They're trying to get the ball up higher on their opponent, things like that. But in general, the math would suggest to hit 2 first serves. That doesn't take into account stress, nerves, those other factors. And that's one of the reasons, likely reasons, why really no player does it. Nick Kyrgios is the closest player that has consistently, hit 2 first serves at the highest level and can do it pretty well. If you actually look at the breakdowns, whether he's doing it strategically or whether he's doing it for other reasons. But you haven't seen too many players go that route yet, but there will be going forward if people look at the numbers. But it takes a lot of belief. It takes a willingness to have higher double faults potentially, knowing that you're going to win more points over the course of matches, and it may not even be one match. The challenge with that strategy is you may lose some matches over the course of a year with that, but over the course of the entire year, your odds, if everything holds, should give you a better outcome. Okay, at this point, what I think I may do is, if you can raise your hand, and I'll be able to share screens and we can kind of go through some of the serve analysis for folks that are interested. Thomas, how about we go with you first?
Okay, Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem at all. So if you can press that green button, the share screen button.
Yeah.
You may have to press it twice.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on just a minute.
Thomas, let me know what you're seeing there. Do you want me to come back?
Hold on just a second. I've got this in a couple different formats. Hold on just a moment. Yeah, you can come back. Sorry,
Okay.
Mark.
Yeah, no problem at all. Anyone else want to raise their hand? Okay, Alexander, how about you can share your screen? Great.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah. And
Yep.
does it work also?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it looks great.
This is a WTA top 300 girl.
Okay.
And she's a little bit struggling with her serve. I will first play it in normal speed. Yeah, I think that she's not side on anymore during cocking.
Okay.
I will show it in. I cannot in slow motion, so I will do it in breaks. So that's probably a little bit too early rotated. And but what can you do about it? As the first coach key?
Yeah, so at this point, like you said, when she gets here, it's too late. You can't make an adjustment at that point. She's already got that over rotation. So if we go back a few frames to loading, you'll see a couple things here that can make an adjustment. So I'd even go back further to release, where she releases the ball.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to see from this angle, but it looks like she may be able to release the ball a little more to the right net post. So that would help her hips rotate a little bit better.
Okay.
And then once she does that, keep going. Yeah, so see how she's shifted her weight into the front leg pretty excessively there?
Yeah.
There's not much load at all on the back, so she's already shifted forward. From this position, her only option really is now to then over rotate just to catch up with it. So what you'd want, because her angles aren't bad, but she's shifted forward too much. So what you'd like her to do is twist into that back hip more, and then be able to serve off the back leg. So next time you work with her and see her, try to get her to serve off her back leg more, because it looks like she's going to have trouble doing that based on how much she's shifted into her front leg.
And if you change the release, it will already help a little bit. Probably.
Exactly, significantly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I have another one, if possible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. This is from a boy with a platform stance, and I'm a little bit concerned about the collapsing of the knee, but I think the rest is quite okay. Again, we'll do it in breaks. Because is this a little bit too wide, you think?
No, not necessarily. Again, this is the style piece, so you don't want to make adjustments to style until you understand how the fundamentals look.
Because this is release.
Yep. So that's pretty straight on. That was the one thing you notice. He's got a very long, slow take back as well.
Yeah.
So let's see if he can catch up to get into load or not.
This is load.
Yeah. So you can kind of see here, he hasn't really done a great job of getting the back leg. He's shifted into the front. Go ahead. See how that movement right there, that's really his load, is right there.
Yeah. So this is.
So you can see there that he's got a pretty one-legged load. It's all front leg. His back leg, you could cut his back leg off now, and not much. He's not driving out of that back at all.
Okay. Because this looks fine by me, the cocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he corrected a little bit after loading.
Yeah. So now keep going though. Yeah. So from this angle, it looked pretty good. I mean, he did, like you said, he was able to go up. But the question is, go back a little bit.
What do you want?
Just the cocking. Keep going forward a bit. Yeah, so he's pretty late though. So you want his lower body to be completely released at about this point. See how his legs are still bent a little bit? He hasn't. So he probably is leaving 3 to 5 miles on the table on his serve. So he's got a pretty good serve already. But because of his shifting his weight into his front leg like that, he hasn't maximized his lower body release as much as he could. So if you go to the next frame, see pretty much go back one. I know we're missing a frame or two here, so it's a little bit hard sometimes with this, but this is important when people watch. Go back one more. Yeah, so right there, he's already come out of his cocking. He's already started his acceleration, and his foot hasn't completely straightened out. So he's got a gap between his legs. So he's leaving, and he's starting to open up there a little bit. So he's leaving some miles per hour on the table. But like you said, it looks like a strong kid. It looks like he makes up for it with his arm a bit, and he can probably hit a pretty reasonable serve, but it's not optimized.
And that starts also with loading the back leg a little bit more.
Yeah, he just shifts way into that front leg early. So he's strong enough to do it the right way. He can do a lot of good stuff with it, but he's just not optimizing what he's got.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thomas, why don't we head back to you? It sounds like you've got it ready to go.
Okay, I'll try again. As soon as this one comes off, I guess.
Okay, I think all you have to do is share your screen.
Yeah, it says screen recording. Stop recording. Yeah. Yeah, it says share screen, and then it says screen recording.
Interesting. I'm not sure what's going on with yours, but let's try this.
Okay, ik ben klaar. Ja. Ja, goed. Lager heb jij dus dat wordt cool. En wat was je?
Yeah, I don't know, Mark. I can't get it to come up, so interesting. If I'm hitting share content and it says screen, and when I'm hitting screen, it's coming up. So it says screen recording.
Coco? Jij hond over? Ik zie hem lopen. Jo.
Yeah, I don't know, Mark. I can't figure it out, man. Sorry?
How about we go to Jermaine? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, just give me 1 second here.
Great. Sorry about that. It seemed like we were having an issue with Thomas's iPad.
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can. Perfect. So just by the way, this is Huddle for the folks that aren't that familiar. Huddle's another one of the top 3 or 4 most utilized apps out there for this purpose.
Yeah, so this is a 10-year-old. I mean, he's like a yellow ball player, but he's been struggling with his serve quite a lot. I teach this level a lot, and this kid has it's been quite a challenge for me to help him through, and I've helped a lot of other kids. So I just wanted to share where he's at, and so you can give me your thoughts.
No, it's great for everyone to see because, yeah, we've seen a lot of pretty good servers. It's good seeing a younger player here.
I'll try to scroll so you guys can see it in a slow-mo and we can go through the stages. So I have him start here because he has like trouble with coordination. So let's say this is kind of the release. And I think he's struggling with the grip. As you guys can see, it's not a real continental so far. So I don't know, maybe this is kind of his loading, which is already completely palm up and strings facing up, and I see he's already curving his spine. I think there's some physical limitations. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell just from looking whether it's physical or it's just technical, but the challenge for him is until the grip's corrected a little bit, he's still going to have some of that because the ball is in the right spot. So he's done a good job with the ball release. So there's no reason for him to be arching his back right now. So that's an interesting piece of information. Why is he arching his back? So let's take a look. If you
Sure.
continue.
Just a quick comment. I've seen a lot of these younger players, even if they have like the proper grip, they struggle really bad with the racket drop.
Correct.
Just a comment.
No, you're 100% right. And a lot of it is like this is a great example, actually. Yeah. So this one, you sort of need to go back to the beginning. So go back to when we start. So the
Release,
grip, of
maybe?
course, until you fix the grip, it's going to be hard to get rid of the palm open and how extreme he is with that position. So that's going to be important to make that adjustment. And then
Okay.
the question is, he's not jumping yet either. So honestly, this player is a little early, I would say, to apply all the principles we've been talking about because of how it looks like he's his athleticism is pretty good. Looks like he's pretty well coordinated. So curious question is why, I guess, wouldn't you have changed the grip yet? Is there some reason that
No. I try to. I mean, I've tried to change that, but he's still kind of struggling with that. I mean, he knows, and at the beginning of the clip, he's already checking. I've asked him every time when you step on the line, make sure you have the proper grip, and he has the cues, but it's still, I don't know if his muscle memory or whatever. He's still. I mean, he has a hard time getting into the right thing. So.
Yeah, no, you can see, he's definitely got a routine there. So if you continue, because this is a good one, because you can see the areas of issue. He's got, palm open right here. He doesn't really use his legs at all. He doesn't get off the ground, actually. So, he's got a really elementary sort of service motion right now. So from this standpoint, as a coach, your question is, what do you attack first? Because there's a lot of stuff to attack here.
I was definitely trying to, I mean, as I said, like starting with the racket up, like the loading almost, and having him focus on the racket drop and the grip. Those were my things. Where would you attack? Where would you focus more at this point?
Yeah, at this point, I would definitely hone in on the grip because until you get the grip right, everything else isn't going to really work. And that's kind of priority one. And then the other would be getting him to turn his hips. I'd do two areas here. I'd have him rotate into his right hip and load his back leg, because until you get him to feel that, he still may not jump much or at all, but you want him to get that rotation and that feel initially, because he can do it. You can see he's got enough ability. He's not a complete beginner from a standpoint of he doesn't know how long. Do you know how long he's been playing?
Yeah, he's been playing probably 4 years or so. He's
Oh,
done
okay. So
the
he's been playing a long
progression
time.
from.
Okay.
Yeah, he's done red, orange, green, and now he's in yellow.
Okay. So yeah, so that I would definitely work his grip, because that's the position you don't really like. And then you can see his back leg isn't loaded. He doesn't feel comfortable jumping yet, and that's another question. He's got the Statue of Liberty. So all these checkpoints that we went through, he hits nearly all of them. He's collapsing, falling to the left, but it's a result of the first three, because he never got into a good loaded position. So you want to get him into stage 3, and I'd work on that. I'd get the grip right and then work on making sure he can get to stage 3 before you kind of spend too much time on anything else.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem at all. Good stuff. Okay, would Art be available? Art Frey, do you want to share your screen? You may be muted. Let me unmute you.
Is it
There you
working
go.
now?
Yeah, works great.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is a 13-year-old. It's actually my son. So I'll play it.
So this is just a good tip here. This is a challenging angle that you film from, because you don't see a lot of the components here. It's hard to judge a lot, but we can still work through it. It's just a bit of a challenging angle.
So like the one thing I thought that he was doing wrong was the tilt, the lack of tilt, because it seems like when he's in the trophy position, his shoulders seem pretty flat. Like the left shoulder should be higher than the right shoulder should be higher than the elbow.
So keep going a little bit. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop. Go back a little. One more. Yeah, right about there. So that's the position you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you think the elbow should be a little bit lower. There should be a better, closer to a 45-degree shoulder tilt. Yeah, you'd be right there. He definitely, the question is, it's not a shoulder tilt issue. It's a hip issue. His hips are pretty level right there. You'd like that back hip to be just a little bit lower, because his motion looks really nice. Again, this is a bit of a challenging angle view to pick up all the components we need, but in general, you can see that he's got some pretty good mechanics. It's just a little off right there.
Mm-hmm.
So now if you take it forward a few frames. And then as a result, he's got a pretty low contact point, and he collapses. He over-rotates a little early. Again, nothing major, because, you can see he's a pretty good athlete. The racket drop does well, so go forward just a bit. Yep, that's good position, except it's starting to collapse and open up a bit early. So overall, you've probably, you can see there's 2 or 3 little things there that could work on that would allow him to keep, because his head's still pointing up, so he's probably being cued to keep the head up, but he's still collapsing pretty significantly here.
Oh, I see. So yeah, he should work on maybe getting higher up and going after the ball at the top of the bounce and everything.
Yeah, it's not really him going up that's the issue. He's trying to go up. The problem is he hasn't pushed off his back leg in the right direction, and he's over-rotated a bit too early. So right there, he looks pretty good, but look what happens as he comes out of it. He rotates very quick. See how he collapses?
Right.
So he's got to stay side on longer so that he can stay as tall as possible. If you just tell him stay taller, which is a cue a lot of people give, it doesn't get at this issue though. Because he'll still collapse, and that's the thing. So you've got to make sure he stays side on longer, and that he rotates into his back hip earlier at that trophy position to allow for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much. That's
Yeah,
very
of course.
helpful.
No problem. It looks pretty good. Peter McDonald.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, no problem.
I have one from behind, but at the contact point, it kind of gets cut off a little bit. I kind of have one sort of from the side. I think I'll just start with this one.
Okay. Just share your screen so we can. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, let me move this down. So there's like stage one, where the ball's coming out. I think that's okay.
Yeah, that looks great.
Trophy position. It looks like he's loading in his back leg, but to be honest with you, I have so much trouble telling the weight distribution on those feet. It looks 50-50 or 60-40, but curious what you think.
Yeah, no, he's pretty significantly front leg loaded there. So
Okay.
see that hip is out pretty far, and then notice how it's a bit hard to see from this angle, but notice how the for him it's going to be his left leg, his back leg. Notice how it's collapsed a little bit. That knee's collapsed inwards. That's a telltale sign he's not loading very much. Because even though he's got a knee bend there, he's not really pushing. So that's called a knee valgus position, and you see that a lot when their glute, the back leg glute isn't activated very well. So he's shifting into his front leg pretty early. But he's got reasonably good angles. You know what I mean? By his hip angle's not bad, and his shoulder plane isn't bad either.
Okay. Yeah, that's out of all this, we've been doing all these, all these webinars, and I've been reading everything. It's just, I see that you have that pad, and I'm like, man, I just wish I had one of those pads, because visually, I don't know why I'm struggling to be able to tell, especially in a pinpoint stance. With some of my players, I can't even tell, honestly. I mean, it has to be almost like 100% of their weight on that front foot, and then I can see it, but for some reason, I struggle on that for some reason.
No, it's just practice. It's like everything else. Once you see 1,000 of them and you start looking there, you then become pretty comfortable with it. But it's like everything else. You were probably looking at other parts of the serve previously, so that was never a major area of focus. So don't beat yourself up about it. It's something that you just get better at the more you see. Once you see 1,000 and you look at that kind of same scenario. But again, in future, recommending try to be on the baseline when you film these. It just makes it a lot more consistent and clearer to see. And then you definitely want to film from the side. So the left side for a left-hander, right side for a right-hander, and the back view.
I have a back view. I just can't, at the contact point, the ball gets cut off. So I thought.
Yeah, this is a pretty good view. It's just a little bit close, like inside the baseline, so we don't fully get to see that back leg exactly at this position.
And then at the cocking stage, which is about right there.
It's probably one more. Yeah, so it's actually it's halfway between where you were and where that is. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, it's pretty close to there. So that's pretty good right there. It's probably, but you see how the back leg's completely off the ground? That's what you expect. But his is a little tad early. We're talking milliseconds here, but it's pretty good. So
is he side on enough for you?
At this point, yeah, he looks pretty good here.
Okay. And then this would be the stage
acceleration,
stage 5. Okay.
Yep.
And
you can see he's starting to break. He's starting to lose it. So he's falling to the right.
Yeah.
And he's a little collapsed there. Not bad, but
is that because he's not staying side on long enough?
Correct. So he was really good at cocking, but then he came out of that quickly. So the
Okay.
two areas for him I would work on is definitely figuring out what's going on with his back leg. I'm guessing based on how he's collapsing, his glute strength is not great on that back leg, on his left leg. So
Yeah.
I would spend some time looking at that and trying to strengthen that, and then making sure that he can load into it. And then the second is once he comes out of cocking, he's got to continue to stay side on, because it's serve's not bad. I mean, it's what we're talking about is relatively minor compared to a lot, but
Yeah.
there's still some pretty good opportunity for improvement there.
Yeah, I figure because like I have this little radar gun and he maxes out at like kind of like 110-ish.
Hmm.
And I'd love to see this kid serving in the 120s. It's just, I just know there's something off with the technique.
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of see he's not that knee collapsing is a telltale sign that he doesn't like to load that.
Okay.
That's the first sign of someone that's just trying to avoid that position. He's not doing it consciously; it's all subconsciously. But you want to just get to the bottom of what the cause is there,
Okay.
and then that should help tremendously.
And then I think he's got good long axis.
Mm-hmm. He does. You just look how far, and it's hard to tell here, but he looks like he's falling pretty far to the right at this point.
Yeah.
He's very open, and he's falling to the right here.
Okay. And then there's his landing.
Yeah, which looks great. Landing looks good.
Could I show you just like just this from behind?
Sure.
Is this can you see this?
No.
Oh, okay. How do I? Okay, so I stop sharing.
Yeah, stop share and then
share.
get the screen up that you want.
Got it. Okay, sweet. Okay, so can you see it?
Yep, this looks good.
Okay, so there's this beginning. The toss is coming out, looks fine, and then that's his load, or that's the third stage right there.
Yeah, so from this angle it looks better. This is why two angles are important. You can't see this knee collapsing as much on this angle.
Yeah.
This angle looks pretty good. The only thing from this angle that now we see that we didn't see from the other angle was he doesn't rotate into that hip. He's dropped into it, but he hasn't rotated into it. So here you'd want him to rotate counterclockwise into that left hip. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
his hips should be facing closer to the left net post at this point.
Okay.
Instead they're facing the net right now.
Okay, and then in the caulking stage right there.
So go back a little bit. Let's see, from this will tell us for sure. Yeah, see, he doesn't fully get into cocking at the right time.
So what's happening? Is he exploding with his legs too early?
Yeah, so he's out of his leg drive before there. See, he should still be on the ground at full cocking. Your toe will still be on the ground on the front
Got
foot.
it.
You
You
may
don't
have
want
a
to be
little.
airborne then.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
right now he's released all his energy from his legs earlier before he's fully stored it in his upper body.
And you want that racket pointing down more like right there?
Right there. That would be
Okay.
the spot where you want the tip of the racket pointing to the ground.
Okay.
Yeah. So his sink is off, and now you can easily see from this angle how much he's opening up.
Yeah,
So
he is opening up. Because if I was directly behind him, you'd be able to see both legs.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's why this is a great reason for everyone on today why you want two angles. One angle never gives you all the information.
And then from there, there's the acceleration piece.
Yep. So see how open he is here? You didn't see, none of us, I didn't see this from the side view. See how open he is at this point?
Yeah. So his biggest thing is really that loading on that on his left leg and then staying side on so he doesn't collapse.
Yep, exactly. And if he loads better on that left leg, he's gonna come out of his legs a little bit later, not as early, to the point where he's able to summate all those forces and really get everything out of his legs possible.
Okay, and then I think that's his contact there.
Yeah. So, overall, he does a pretty good job at contact, considering those two things that we've seen.
Yeah.
And that's why he's serving at 110, not 100, because he does a lot of things right. It's just like you seem to already realize he's leaving some miles per hour on the table here.
Okay, and a big piece of that is he's just jumping. He's like jumping too early, so he just loses. He's almost countering he's countering that movement.
Exactly.
With the racket snapping down.
He's released all his lower body with nowhere for it to be stored.
Got it. Okay, sweet. And then there's let's see. There's
Where'd they put this thing
the
here?
long axis.
Yeah,
deal.
which looks great. He's got good shoulder range and he looks good there. Yeah,
But you can see how he lands way out to his right there.
Yeah, that's the over rotation and just landing significantly to the right, which is again the telltale sign of opening up too early and not, it all comes back to load though. You got to just work on his load, making sure that he's rotated into his load and making sure that, he's able to get that positioning correct.
Thanks. I really appreciate you taking the time to.
Yeah, of course. No problem at all.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, thanks. Jared Martin. Jared, are you on?
Hi, sorry. Just trying to pull up the screen here.
Yep, no problem.
There we go. Oh, shoot. It unfortunately says it wants a plugin now to share. That's weird.
Here it goes. Seems
Okay.
like it's picking it up.
Okay. Can you see that?
No, it says it's started to share it. So you've tried to share it, but it looks like it's not coming through.
Okay. Maybe you just come back to me in a minute.
Okay, I will. I'll come back to you. Roger Hernandez.
Perfect. Share screen. Okay, so here to the left is one of my players. He's under 12.
Yeah, and this is Coach's Eye, it looks like.
Yes.
Yeah, so folks, this is Coach's Eye. So this is, if you haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like.
So yes, he's a top 5 under 12 player in Canada. So he has a pretty good serve, but I want to analyze it and see where we can get better.
For sure.
So here is start. I think it's good. Is his back foot a little bit too extreme there, or is it okay?
Again, this is where you say, hey, check this down as style. And then if there's a big issue somewhere else later, then we'll come back to this. But never like to adjust the start until we see the rest of the motion, because there are great servers that have this foot position. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it unless something later in the motion shows up that we say it may be because they're a little extreme here, especially for his age as well. When they get older, this position wouldn't bother me at all. But at a young age, it may be harder for him to get into certain positions.
Okay, perfect. So release, pretty good.
Yeah, looks fine.
Then loading. Here, feel like he was a little bit, not enough in the back leg.
Keep going a little bit. Yeah, I don't think we got to full load. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop. Go back a little bit. Go forward. Try to get right at the last spot that his knees go down before they start coming up. Go back 2 frames. Right there, right about there. So that's pretty much his load. So, the definition of load is the last frame that his lower body is going down and storing energy before he starts to accelerate out of his lower body. Mm-hmm. So that's right about there. So I think it's hard to tell exactly, but it looks like his back foot's sliding around his front foot a little bit there.
Yes.
So that probably tells us he's going to open up too early, more than likely. His shoulder plane is pretty good. Elbow position's pretty good. Hips aren't too bad. They could be, again, back leg could be loaded a little bit more. So continue. So go back a little bit. So notice what happens here. The the elbow really gets low late in the motion. So it's pretty low there. Okay, continue up. Okay, so now we've really over-rotated. So notice how those legs are completely separated?
Yeah.
His legs are completely separated and his hips are nearly facing the net now. So this is a really open position at cocking. And that's pure cocking right there. Tip of the racket's pointing down, elbows pointing up. So his upper body looks pretty good from a standpoint of where his arm is, but his entire body has spun out of it. He's not side on at all right now. So let's see what happens. I'm assuming he's going to collapse at contact and he's going to land backwards. Yeah, so he collapses pretty good. See how his butt's kind of backwards nearly after contact? See how there's a pretty big break in the core? So and he's got a really, really long finish. If you go back to, again, it's indoor, so it's a bit harder sometimes to see, but let's look if he gets to long axis rotation. See if we can see. Keep going. Doesn't look like it. It's hard to tell, but it looks like he's pretty much flat release there. He gets it right there. So see where he gets it? He gets it very late in his motion, that long axis rotation. He gets it about a frame before that spot where you've got it stopped now. So that's really, really late. So again, he looks like a really good athlete from a standpoint of he's making it work as best as he can, but he's not very efficient with it. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Well, he has, like, on average, he wins 80% of his second serve points. So it's really, he has one of the best serves. But like you said, it's not efficient enough. So it's like sometimes it can be really good, sometimes it can be less good. But compared to the majority, it's above standard, I think.
Yeah, but it's amazing like how much inefficient motion he has in it right now from that perspective. But you can see he's a good athlete. And can you play the one from the backside? Is it the same player?
No, it's a different one.
Okay, different player. Okay.
Is it okay if we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was there anything else that you wanted to talk through on this player?
Well, the one on the left, often he hits his racket on the ground.
Yeah.
And what do you think that's caused?
So that's a sign of that lack of long axis rotation. Typically, you see that with players. They'll hit themselves in the shin or they'll hit themselves on the ground, and that's because they have this flat release that is literally going down and they don't control it. So, but the reason he's doing that is because he's super open. So if you get him to stay side on longer and do everything else pretty much the same, but just get him to stay side on longer, don't let his back foot come around either. The reason this is all happening is because his back foot's sliding around. If you can keep his back foot behind him rather than sliding around, that should help him from opening up too early.
Okay. So that will help him with his long axis rotation. And
100%.
Okay.
Because he's got it. It's just it's very late. He doesn't utilize it until pretty much the frame that you've got there. You don't see that position until you get to that scenario.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
So this one, same thing, under 12s going into under 14s. This is more of a second serve. He has a lot of issues on a weak second serve, gets attacked a lot. So, and also I made a mistake of addressing the style a little bit too much before, but now after this course, I learned not to address that too much. Obviously not to address them very much. There's bigger issues. So I think the start was good. Release, a little bit high. It's all right.
Yeah, not too bad. Like, just be a little careful over time that he doesn't bend his elbow too much, because that just may provide some inconsistencies in his serve. See how it slightly bends at release? He kind of pushes it out.
Yes.
So minor thing, but you may want to address it just as you're going through. Just say, hey, try to keep that arm straighter as you release it.
Okay, perfect. And then here, he has a lot of trouble with the pinpoint stance.
Yeah.
And he has trouble with the coordination of that. So we're mixing both platform and pinpoint to see which one is going better.
Okay.
But after this course and learning through it, I haven't been able to see him, obviously, because of the situation, but I know that he's not loading his back leg enough.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. So I think he's going down, loading way too long, and he's losing too much energy there.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And he's not twist rotating at all. So he's loading straight down. And he's got, like you said, a bit too long in the bottom, so it's hard for him to come out of it. But try to get him to rotate a little bit. So it'd be a clockwise rotation into that right hip.
Okay. And then I was addressing...
And his elbow looks really low as a result.
Yes, exactly. And I was addressing like the palm up, but then I think now I'm going to address way more the hip, because I know he's trying to get more mobility and like more range of motion. So he's going back there.
For sure.
So here you can see it's opening up.
Yep.
Cocking is not too bad. He has good range of motion in the shoulder.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You'd like him a little bit more extended. See how his knees are a little bent?
Yeah.
Right there? You'd
Yes.
like him to be a little straighter at this point in the motion. That's part of the reason he hasn't come out of his legs yet fully. And that's like you said, once you take care of that knee bend being too deep and too long at the bottom, this position will look even better.
Okay. And that's not something I would tell him, right? That's not something I would tell him. Something I'd address before in the loading phase.
Correct. This you don't deal with. You just say, in your mind, how you address this is come out of your legs sooner, meaning that you don't go as deep in your knee bend.
Okay, perfect.
Exactly what you said. I mean, that was what you saw, I think, originally as well. You mentioned that that's what you'd be working on going forward.
Yes. And this is a second serve too. So, once he's about a acceleration phase, he has pretty good thoracic mobility.
Yeah,
But
you can see he does. You just got to be a little careful. He doesn't go into lumbar extension too much. It looks like it's a little bit too much lumbar. He's got good thoracic for sure. And that's the problem with players that have pretty good range like this. They're going to push the envelope a little without realizing it. And so you just got to be a little careful he doesn't go into lower back extension, lumbar extension too much.
And he's been complaining a little bit about back pain, so lower back pain. So that's something we have to address too.
Yeah, for sure. You want him to be a little straighter than that.
So I think the toss is okay too for a second serve.
Yep, toss is fine. That's right at 12. So that's not a real problem. Problem was he didn't hit it at the top. He's actually coming down as he makes contact.
Okay.
So see here, he should pretty much make contact. Right there. That should be his contact. Okay. Instead, look, when he makes contact, he's on the way down. See how he's going down now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So his timing's off a little bit. And that all goes back to what you brought up first. He got stuck in the bottom too long and he didn't come out of his legs quick enough.
Okay. And then he does the butt back, same thing. And then he goes back, collapses.
Yeah.
And
again, you wouldn't worry about any of that because that'll all take care of itself once he comes out of his legs right.
Okay. And then long axis rotation is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then finish, he falls to his left too much, and then he gets attacked. So.
Yeah, and he lands behind the baseline, and all those things are going to be corrected if you take care of really, for him, it's just stage 3. Everything else looks like it'll be fine if he can get his stage 3 right.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that's very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. No problem. That was great.
Thank you. That's
Rodolphe? Rodolphe, if you're there, feel free to share your screen.
Do you see that?
I see your name, yeah. If you share your screen,
okay.
Press the green button.
Can you see that?
Not yet, no. There should be a green button that says share screen.
Yeah, I have it.
And now press that if you can.
I did it.
And then maybe accept. You may have to press something that asks you to accept it.
Yep.
There it is.
Here it is.
Yep, great. That's perfect. So yeah, you can make,
Great.
if you can make that full screen, that would be great.
Yes, please.
Perfect.
This is my daughter. She's 19 years old, VTA 500, and she had a knee surgery. Everything else is fine.
Okay.
I'm working with Startfish,
Great.
and okay.
Okay, so you can use the button next to the play button. That'll go frame by frame.
Yep.
So yeah, maybe go through that. Perfect. So see how she's got a little bent elbow there? How's her
Yeah.
toss? Is her ball toss pretty consistent, or does it go off a little bit?
It goes off a little bit, and I'm asking her to have the elbow a little bit more extended.
Yep, a little straighter. That would be good. The release could be slightly higher as well. See how the ball's already out of her hands?
Yeah.
You know, and that it's minor, but you know, look, just as you're working on keeping your left arm extended, just make sure that ball toss consistent height of where she releases it.
Great, thank you. Then
One more. Yeah, it's probably right there. So this is a great example. Her shoulder is really good. Her shoulder plane looks great. About a 45-degree angle from her left shoulder to her right elbow. That looks really good. Watch her legs though. See how her shorts, the top of the shorts are pretty much a straight line.
Yeah.
And we'd like to see that angle closer to her shoulder plane angle.
Great.
So which leg had the knee?
Here.
Yeah, makes sense. All the weight is going in the front leg because she's pretty much can't load the back leg very well here because all the weight is she's like squatting at the moment, and we'd like the weight back and down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she's squatting too much.
Correct.
Here.
Yep.
It looks like she's squatting, huh?
Yep. Agree.
And the hips are too much in line, huh?
Exactly. That's kind of straight right there. You'd like the hips going back and down, very similar to the angle or the shoulder plane.
Good.
And as a result, she's going to have to open up here early because of that. So you'll start seeing, see how those legs are starting to separate now?
Yep.
But she's got very good range of motion in her upper body. Her upper body looks good. It's just now her body's opened up too early.
And then
she'll collapse. Yep. Go ahead.
She will have a lot of difficulty to get the head up.
Yeah. And so it's not her head. Her head's not her issue here. What's the problem is, notice how her legs and her butt are behind the baseline.
Yeah.
She's collapsed, and now she's in that Statue of Liberty position, which puts a lot of strain on her shoulder as well. So it's all stems from, like you pointed out, those hips are square, straight like this. We really want her back hip to be down. If we can work on that and getting her back into that back hip, it's going to make so much difference for her. She's not going to over-rotate. She's not going to open up early, and she's going to be able to load in the right direction.
Great.
And then let's see how she does here. So she doesn't get, you see that? She doesn't get into long axis rotation at all.
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity as well. But again, that's not because she doesn't have the range in her arm. Her arm range of motion looks really good. Her challenge is she's over-rotated, and that it makes it harder to get in that position.
Great.
So, yeah, looking at that motion, because there's a lot of really good things there. You see that, I mean, she's probably 5 to 7 miles less than what she should be serving right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, let me know when you make that adjustment. I'd be interested to see. I think you'll see a big difference in serve speed and she'll be able to hit a kick serve. With that motion, it's probably really difficult for her to hit a kick serve. I would say based on that.
Yeah, she's the second serve we are. She is using the slice for the second serve, mostly body, because it's not so fast.
Yep.
But now we worked a lot on the shoulder and things like this with her. I'm throwing plyometric training, but I think there is a big work to do with her hips and legs, huh?
Yeah, correct. So the biggest things are stage 3, work on getting that back hip down, letting her rotate into that back hip. So clockwise into the right hip. Those 2 things will make a huge difference. And then when she comes out of that, she needs to stay side on all the way through contact. If she does those 2 things, everything else will work out well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's so great.
No problem at all. Good stuff. Keep me updated on how she does as well.
With pleasure. Thank you so much.
No problem. Jared, are you available now?
Yes. So I have to wait for this one to end, right, before I can share?
Yeah, if you can unshare your screen, that would be great. There it is. Yep.
Okay. So let's share this. So let me know if that works.
Yeah, we see your screen, but we see your desktop. There we go. Now, if you click on that, yep, that should work.
Okay.
Perfect.
So
let folks know what program you're using.
this is Huddle.
This is Huddle. Perfect.
Yeah. So let's do this again. It's me, by the way. So
Great.
we'll just play again. So here we go. And then we can go in. Okay. So start. Release is about there.
Yeah, so you can see it's a pretty low release. So do you serve volley a lot? Do you serve and volley a lot?
Not that much.
Okay. So sometimes you see this with someone that serves volleys a lot and they kind of try to get the ball really far out in front. But if that's not what you're trying to do, then yeah, you've got a slight bend in the elbow and you release a little bit low. So, just from a consistency standpoint, it's nothing major, but something you may want to look into.
Yeah, the toss tends to drift left a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you've just got a couple little things there that add up to the ball moving more than you'd like it to move.
So then load is about there.
Yep. So back about 2 frames. Yep. See how you shifted weight. Keep going now. Go forward. Yeah. So that's what you always want to know is when do they actually get into load? Is it in the right spot or then they shift into the front leg early? So overall, it's pretty good. You do go pretty deep into your knee bend. So it's just something that, you've got a pretty high toss potentially. You may want to have slightly less knee bend and slightly lower toss, and you'll probably get more power out of your serve by doing that.
To me, it looks like my shoulders are way too tilted relative to my hips.
Correct. They are. So the shoulder tilt is actually pretty good. It's the hip tilt that could be a little better, just a little more into the back leg. But you've got a very deep knee bend, which makes for some challenges. So from that perspective, that would be a 2-pronged kind of minor adjustment. Try not to go as deep into the legs and then try to rotate back and down, though, at the same time, if that makes sense. It sounds like they're saying 2 different things, but you're trying to go less depth, but more kind of rotate back and down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like what I find interesting about my own motion compared to the people I work with is I think a lot of mine is based on lack of flexibility in the hips.
But I mean, there's nothing here that I would say needs excessive work. It's just how do we optimize it at this point?
So anyways, there.
Yeah, so you can kind of see this is where the lack of flexibility shows more in the upper body than the lower body, because your lower body looks pretty good. You've pretty much fully extended. This is what we like to see, is that front foot's still on the ground slightly, but the back foot's slightly off, which is exactly where you're at. But we'd love to see your elbow pointing to the ball right now, the tip of your elbow, and the tip of your racket pointing straight to your right heel. We don't see either of those two at this point.
Okay.
But again, that's more than likely a flexibility issue for you. You're probably a little stiff through the thoracic extension area and through your shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Side on is great. This is, for folks watching, this is kind of what we want most of the players to look like. See how we can't see the front leg. We only see, it looks like you've only got one leg, which is what we want. That means both legs are side on together. The spine is side on, elbows pointing up. The frame of the racket is coming through. This is on edge. You'll hear that term a lot, come through on edge. So everything looks really good from this angle. Yeah, perfect. So see how it's still side on. Most of the players we've seen today haven't been a side oners at contact. So you're a good foot in the air. So everything looks really good there still. And you should have pretty good long axis rotation based on everything else we saw.
Flexibility. It's not bad, but flexibility.
Yep. See, that's exactly what we want. We want to see that the first frame after ball contact. So how can you can sort of predict that based on how you looked previously. Even though you had pretty restricted shoulder range of motion in cocking, you could see, because you stayed so side on and you're in such a good position, that it was easy for you to get in this long axis rotation scenario.
I mean, it didn't go forward very much.
Yeah.
Not tall, but.
Yeah. About half a foot more would have been ideal. Don't need much more. Sampras was one of those guys that didn't land. His whole foot wasn't inside the court. 3/4 of his foot was, but he had great positioning at contact, just like you did. So I'm not as concerned about that. I'd like you to be inside the court a little bit more, of course. About half a foot to a foot more would have been perfect. But you'll get that easily. That's just awareness now. And now that you're aware of it, you'll change your release path just slightly.
So that's basically the end of the motion. Is there time for me to sneak one student in quickly?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so we got rid of this. So we'll go. Now this is a funny one because of the situation. We actually did it on a track.
Yeah, no problem. Doesn't really matter. As long as they can serve and hit the ball, they can do it. Like you said, you can do it anywhere.
So this is basically a competitive kind of club player, 3.0, 3.5, kind of moving upwards, pretty young and athletic. So we can show it.
Okay, we can slow this down a little bit. So this, it's great seeing these because we saw you, who's got a really good motion, couple little things to work on, but in general hits all the 8 stages well, and got all those. And then you've got more of a recreational player here that has a lot of areas that need some work.
Exactly, yeah. So basically where it starts.
So the first thing is the grip. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it was further over, and we're kind of just slowly moving it back. It's kind of eastern right now, but we're trying to get it towards continental there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so keep going. Yep. So the bent elbow is something you want to take care of. So keep that arm straight. Release position actually isn't too bad. It's just the elbow was a bit bent. So you want to make sure that left arm is straightened out the entire time. But notice how the grip and where the racket is now. You've got a good palm down position, but the grip is really a forehand grip at the moment.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed out here that's kind of been a bit of an issue is the racket does get up very quickly, but that doesn't fit in with anything else in the motion. As you'll kind of see here. So anyways, so fully loaded is about there. So that's where the shift's happening.
Yeah, so you see what happens here. She's sort of not really, if you go back a frame or two, I'll show you where real load is. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, about there is her real load. Because, you can see her shoulder angle's about 90 degrees there, and the reason that's her real load is look what happens if you go through the next few frames. You'll see how she shifts into her front. See how she's shifting? She's already coming out of her load at that point. Keep going. Yep, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. See how that was all part of one motion? So for her, the biggest thing is she's just got to load better. I mean, you got to work with her on being, hey, we want you to load that lower body, and she's sort of immediately thinking just accelerate, and there is no load. So that would be where you'd want to focus in with her. Work on the grip a little bit, and then keep her back loaded, because actually her arm action looks reasonably good. It's just there's nothing to load from.
I'd worked on that specifically. That was my previous way of doing things, was to basically work from contact backwards, make the arm, which is going to try to do the reverse now. Yeah,
it's just, as you can see, when you go contact back, for a complete beginner, like someone that's never played before, that's okay for a week or two, just to get them to feel contact and make contact. But to get them to sync the kinetic chain and do all those stages right, we really got to start from the beginning and from the ground up.
Basically, impact.
Yeah. So she makes pretty good contact. She never gets off the ground. That's the other thing, is she's attempting to act like she's jumping without jumping.
Yeah. So you don't really see any long axis rotation.
Yep, exactly. So, but you can see she's pretty athletic. She made pretty solid contact from a position standpoint. It means her awareness of her body's pretty good. She just needs to know how to use it better.
Okay. That's basically it.
Yeah. Well, no, this was great. It was good to see the two different types as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Tom, you got your phone all set up?
Yeah, I'll try again, Mark.
Yeah,
Hold on.
no problem. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah. No, good to see you too. You doing good, mate?
Yeah, really, really good. How about yourself? Do you know where that share button is, the green one?
Yeah. Can you see it?
Not yet. Click it again sometimes, and you got to accept. You got to click it and then accept.
Yeah, mate. I think I'm gonna just I'll email the.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Mine's not working for some reason.
Okay. No worries.
Philip.
All
right, thanks, mate.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
Yeah.
Philip, are you available?
Yeah. Yes. 2 seconds.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, so she used to bring her foot around on her serve, and we've changed to bring it back or just bring it up. So her toss, it might be a small bit low, but she doesn't have any issues with her toss, so I wouldn't change it at the moment.
Yeah, it's not too bad, but yeah, like you said, if there's no issues, leave it alone.
Yeah. So that's her load.
Okay. So a couple things is, the grip is getting a little close on the forehand side. So you may want to, try to work on that. And then, go ahead.
Well, sorry, I was just going to say, that's kind of the issue I was looking at this serve, because if I just go forward 1 or 2 frames, I think our palm opens a bit early.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I'd adjust the grip slightly. Doesn't have to be a full continental, but just a soft Eastern forehand versus more of this, which is getting closer to a full Eastern forehand. So that would be one. The other would be you'd like her to rotate into that right hip a little bit more. Rather, she's squatting as well, similar to the girl we saw about 3 or 4 before, the WTA player. Similar issue there. She's kind of going straight down into the squat and not rotating into that right hip as well. So I'd work on rotating back and down into that right hip.
Yeah, we've been working on that a lot the last few days. It's just she used to bring her foot around and then over rotate. So it's kind of part of the process at the moment. She's getting a bit better at it.
No. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's just that minor adjustment. If you can work on that, that would be huge.
It was that part that I was concerned about. So it's the grip, is it? Like the palm opening here. So that was the grip, do you think?
Sorry. The palm opening's mainly a grip issue right there.
Okay.
So if you adjust the grip, and then if her hips rotate a little more, she's doing that to get range right now.
Yeah.
She's trying to find range that she's not getting from her hips. So if you rotate the hips a bit more, that arm's going to drop better, and she's not going to open her palm as much.
Okay, thanks. And then that's quite good there. Her foot is kind of leaving the ground at loading.
Go through one more frame. Yeah, that's really good, actually. So she looks very good there. The only thing is that left elbow is open. So you don't, from this angle, want to see that left elbow. You want that left elbow to be more in her belly button rather than exposed like that. That means she's going to start opening up early. So the lower body looks great. Couldn't ask for a better lower body position there. It's just the upper body starting to rotate a little bit.
And contact. Yeah, it kind of opens up a bit too much.
Exactly. See how she's open? You see that left elbow? She's just a little bit, but you can fix that pretty easily. So the cue would be when you get back, go back a few frames. Again, you'd want to change the grip just slightly, but when she's there, you want to have her left elbow in her belly button.
To her belly button.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That'll keep her side on longer.
Then she gets the long axis rotation.
Yeah, that'll help that.
Yep.
Keep going, one more frame. Yep, so she gets there fine.
Yep.
So that's great. Even with that grip, she gets there no problem. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, no problem at all. Michael Bird, do you want to show your screen?
Can you hear me? All right.
Yep.
All right, share screen. I just sent you a message to asking about. Here, let me first.
I see it. Yep. So his question was, what are your thoughts on the heel pad of the hand, or the bottom part of the hand hanging off the racket for non-pro players? So great question. So let me get a racket so I can kind of demo that. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is, if I've got my grip like this, having the heel, this part off the racket like that.
Right.
Like,
here, hold on a second.
like this.
Let me share it first. Hold on, just lost you for a second there. Hold on. That takes that. Okay, go ahead. No, it's not.
So you're talking about this piece here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So most good servers do that. Nearly all of them do. Why?
Because sometimes even more so when it gets a little bit more extended, where it's almost in the middle.
So the reason you do that is you get an extra inch. That's part of it, and it's easier to leverage the racket. You can really let it move. The problem is it's harder to be stable when you do that. So if they're good players, totally fine. If they've got the control, it's an advantage. But if they don't have the control, more the younger player or the beginner player or the rec player, you may want to limit that because it just makes it a bit harder to control. Remember, when you increase leverage, you also open up risk, whether it's injury risk or whether it's just control risk. So you just got to make that decision based on your players. But if you're working with good players, definitely is an advantage if you can do that.
Okay. You want me to hit the green here?
Yeah. Go ahead. And try to do full screen if you can.
Okay. Let me see if
that's in the top left of the video.
Right.
No. If you come down.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's better. There you go.
All right. Okay, I'll show you full first. This is two of them. This is a high school player. She's a senior, getting ready to be a college player, scholarship. She was in the finals of the state tournament in Illinois last year. But I've got just a few issues. I'll let you see this first. I'll slow it down here. First of all, I see a little bit of a grip issue there. Even as an advanced player as she is, it just seems to go over a little bit in between continental and Eastern forehand, like right in between.
Yeah, and again, that looking at it from here, I'm not sure if I would change that unless there was something else major, because it isn't pure continental, but it's not a very extreme forehand of any type. So it wasn't like a couple of the ones that we talked about. Even the previous player had a much more extreme sort of grip than this.
And then she's got a little bit of an abbreviated motion. Let me see if I can get it here. Trying to slow it down there. This is Coach's Eye, by the way, but it's I had to email this. So one of the things that I see from that position right there, I see quite often, it seems like a big deal with a lot of players where the front leg is being loaded on quite a bit, meaning the back leg is not being loaded.
Yeah, so this is a player that we typically would see with a lot of potential lower body IT band challenges, hip issues, and potentially ab and lower back strains. Not all the time, but if you're based on the players that come in with problems and you analyze their serve, a lot of them have this. This is where she's pushing all her weight into the front hip. Nothing's on the back. Look, she's on her tippy toes on her back leg. So there's nothing really pushing. And then, she looks like a good athlete as well. It's like
she's a very good athlete. She gets a lot of things done. She gets away with a lot of things.
And then you can kind of see she gets into a pretty good cocking position, even from that situation, but she over rotates like crazy. And you have to, when you go that far into the front leg like she does, the only way you're going to make contact is if you over rotate and then collapse, and she lands behind the baseline pretty much.
See if I can slow this down a little bit here.
Yeah, see how she got tippy toes?
Yeah.
On the back leg. Now, she finds a way to get reasonable contact, but yeah, that's the thing. As long as you can get her to load the back leg and not shift all her weight into the front leg, I wouldn't change too much else. It's just that it's a big one though. What she is, she's got a very extreme front leg load right there.
Yeah. So the question is that when you have an athlete that's like this, and the athlete obviously has been doing this for a bit of time. She's getting ready to go on to college. How many things are they going to change in the college? There might be some things that might change, but really the bottom line is this is something that I think that she should have fixed before she starts college.
100%. And this isn't a major fix for her because she is a good athlete. She'll pick this one up pretty easy. So for her, it's the back leg serving, back leg loading. Try to completely tell her to forget about thinking about her front leg. Her front leg's going to work. It has to.
Right.
Just get her to focus on the back leg, and that's all you would do right now. Nothing else. I wouldn't worry about a grip, wouldn't worry about anything else, because her big issue right now is just learning how to load through the back leg, explode up through there, because she does a lot of things right. It's just one major area that needs to be worked through.
And I think that if she doesn't do it that way, just like you said, there's going to be some injury issues that are going to be on the table, particularly that left thigh that's going to be injured because of putting so much weight on it, so much bearing on that.
Exactly. It's going to be real painful, especially if her volume starts to pick up in college. For some of these kids, when they get to college and they start practicing even harder, and they get pushed harder, that's when stuff starts to break down.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. Who have we got? How about Jamie? If you're on.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm here.
Wonderful.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. I'm just gonna show a regular.
Don't think we can hear you.
Now?
That's better. Yep, perfect.
Okay. So this guy is a top 200 player. He's coming back from surgery. He's had several elbow surgeries, so his range of motion is limited.
Okay.
But I wanted to show it to you anyway and see if you could see something that I don't.
Sure.
This is regular speed. This is slow motion.
We didn't see that one. That must have
No?
been on a different screen.
Okay, hold on. Well, let's focus on this one then.
Yeah, just you can kind of walk through that one slowly. Yeah, perfect. Just there.
Yeah. So this is the start.
Mm-hmm.
Release.
Yeah, so it's a little low on the release. So that ball toss is probably going to get to the left a little bit too much sometimes. So you can kind of see if they could release it there. See how low it is there? It's sort of cheap. If you could get it above the eyes, that would be better.
Okay. Then we move on to the loading stage.
Yeah, so he gets very low. And I would say a little too low. He's shifted a little far forward, but not bad. I mean, you'd like a little bit more rotation into the right hip. So that right hip would be rotated clockwise a little bit more. And I would say a little less knee bend would help this player. They'd be able to come out of it quicker and serve harder.
Okay. I mean, to me, it looks good up to this point, but now is when things start to get a little bit rough. As you can see, his palm is up here. I don't know if, he's had surgeries, he's been injured for a long time. So maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't at this point focus as much on the upper, even though the restriction is probably real and it has an impact, but I would go back a little bit.
Okay.
So see how this position here, so go back. He goes very low here and he hasn't really turned into this hip very well. So he's gone straight down and forward a bit. And as a result, when he comes out, he over rotates and he sort of falls to the left very early when he comes out of this. So if you can get him in a better position here, that's going to help him from falling to the left when he comes out.
All right, makes sense. And then
Right there, stop. Yep. See how he's already falling to the left?
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the ball toss isn't terrible. It's not that the ball toss is pushing him too far. It's just because of how he loaded, he's come out of it very, very quickly and over-rotated.
okay. And then he doesn't get to the cooking position properly. You know, his racket doesn't drop all the way.
So, yeah, exactly. So even with him spine angle being not very good here, he's falling to the left. At this point, his tip of the racket should be pointing to his right heel, and his elbow should be hopefully pointing to the ball. So the question then is this because he's physically restricted that he can't do that? Or is it a little bit of both, probably, that there's a bit of physical, but there's also the issue of him falling to the left? And just by question, he's using Prestige, the head?
Yeah, yeah.
Any reason why he's using probably the stiffest racket on the market and he's had 2 elbow issues?
Well, he's had 6 elbow surgeries. It's crazy. I mean, this guy's story is amazing, but he played with the Radical all the way from under 12 to, you know, till he was 20 years old. He was already playing the slams, qualifying to play Mendoza at the slams. And then he changed rackets and he started playing with the Pure Drive. And that's when his problem started, you know, switching from head to Abolat. And then by the time he changed back, it was too late.
Yeah.
He was already hurt.
Yeah,
So,
that's always the challenge when you get a lot of arm issues. You're like, there's 2 reasons technology-wise we always look at. One is you don't want the lightest racket, and 2, you don't want the stiffest racket. And the Pure Drive is basically the lightest racket, or at the time it probably was. And, you know, the stiffest racket is the other concern. So he kind of went both realms, it sounds like.
yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, you can see he's very open, very, very open at this point. You know, we shouldn't see his elbow, his left elbow here, and we see it all. So if you can keep him side on, I mean, whatever you can do to keep him side on is the goal right here. Because, yeah, no wonder he's got elbow. One of the reasons, it's all arm from this point on. He's got no body. His body's going left right now.
His serve is actually good. I mean, he serves hard, and of course, he's better from the baseline, but his serve is not bad, actually. But, you know, I think he can get better for sure.
But, yeah, you look at that position, though, right there, and you can see why his arm, though, because his body's going left. And he's relying on his arm to do it all. And again, he can still get reasonable, you know, pace just using that, but it's coming from the wrong spots. That's the problem.
Yeah. And then, hold on. The long axis rotation is fine.
So he gets that okay. So that you know, he makes up for some of that with his arm getting through the right position. But yeah, you can just see that position. It's challenging. I feel bad for him because you can see how that can contribute.
Yeah. And then, hold on, I wanted to show you. I'll share one more time.
Yep.
This is the side view. Can you see it?
Yeah, we see it. Perfect. Yeah, so if you go back to load, you can kind of see here this view even better. See how much he shifts into the front leg?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's very early into that front leg. He still gets his back leg loaded, but it's shifted much more into the front leg.
Okay, so he has to load more on the
back and rotate into the back a little bit more, yeah.
Okay, and then it's the same thing pretty much. This is the lowest he gets.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure he's done as much rehab as he probably can to get his elbow and his shoulder and his thoracic spine but I'd spend as much time. How old is he?
He's 27 now.
27. So he's still, if is this pretty recent? Is this in the last few months?
He's had problems for the past 7 years. He's gone to every doctor in the whole world, and he's going to Novak's doctor. He's seen everybody, but it's tough. But as I said, the serve is not letting him down. But if he can improve it, I think he can be better.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he'll serve better, but I'm more interested at this point with him trying to avoid the pain because, I mean, the elbow surgeries is probably a lot to do with his serve motion. If this is how he served most of his career, it's very tough on the arm the way he's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then contact.
Yeah. So, I mean, he makes up for it because he gets into a pretty good contact position. Like he's, in a reasonably good contact position right there. That's nice. It's just, it's open, so his positioning, his height is good. Where he is in the court is good. It's just his body is completely open at contact. So if we can get him side on at contact, it's going to allow the body to transfer the energy efficiently rather than making his arm sort of do all the work.
Yeah, that's okay. And then I wanted to show you one more if there is time.
Yep.
This is actually myself. I was top 300 a few years back, 4 years ago. Now I don't compete anymore on the tour, but still I try to work on it.
Sure.
This is full motion, full speed. Start. Release. I don't know if my racket is too high up to that point. What do you think?
That's style. So that's one of those things where if you get to the right loading position, we're good with it. If you don't, then we may want to look to make an adjustment. But style-wise, it's, that's the style piece of it.
Because then I looked at the pictures from Kyrgios, from Barty, other great players, and they all have the racket down pretty much. So I just thought that maybe that was one of the main areas to improve.
No, I mean, there's a few that can get there by going high. It's easier for most people to keep the racket a little bit lower.
Okay. Then loading.
Yeah, so go back one frame. So loading, again, looks pretty good. It's just you'd like to rotate into your back hip more. So you've got good knee bend. Everything looks pretty good. You just haven't rotated. So you'd like it counterclockwise into the back hip, into that left hip. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so just a little bit more turn as you load because everything else looks pretty good there.
Yeah. I mean, the serve was really the reason why I didn't get up higher, and I felt that I was, all my body weight was on my front knee, and I wasn't loading my back leg at all.
Yeah. So you've worked on that since you played, yeah. So this has been something you've been working on, yeah, because it looks pretty good here. You just want to rotate a bit more.
I've got it better now that I don't play. I do it better than when I used to play, so it's quite funny. And then I don't get to the cooking stage really well, as you can see.
Yeah. Do you have problems, shoulder problems?
Not at all.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's a very restricted looking position, as you can see.
Yeah.
So and again, you're open as well. See how open you are?
Yeah, I'm so open.
That's where you want to try to keep your chest pointing to the left fence as much as you can.
Okay. Then contact, but as you say, I'm completely...
Yeah, very open, but pretty good contact position, except you're open. If you were side on there, it would be good. So your serve doesn't need much. It's just staying side on longer and then trying to figure out why you don't get to that cocking position right. Is it physical? And your thoracic spine mobility would really help.
Okay, so just try to do more stretching and mobility on the thoracic.
Exactly, because your mechanics are pretty good, except don't open up. So you stay side on, twist into the back hip a little more in stage 3 in loading, and then explode up and stay side on all the way.
Okay, And then here, as you can see, I don't get to the full long axis rotation. I'm kind of flat.
You're open and then you don't get that. So, you put it's like you're going through all these things trying to figure out what the issues are. And I would say spend a little time. Have you gone to a physical therapist, a physio recently?
Yeah, of course.
Have they said anything about range of motion in your shoulder and your thoracic spine, anything like that? Because the cocking position and the long axis position would suggest you've got some restriction there.
Okay. So, I mean, I was playing a lot, so I was tight as every pro player, but nothing serious.
Nothing that caused obvious pain. Yeah. So I'd take a look at that piece, and I think that'll help a lot.
Okay. So that's it.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. That was great.
No, thank you. Thank you for the information. It's great.
No problem. Dragan?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Mark. Hi, everyone. Thanks for sharing. I'll try to share my screen now, I suppose. Share.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you see me?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. I've got a serve here by my daughter, 13-year-old.
Great.
I thought I'll do it in quick time first.
Okay.
And then go through a little bit of analysis that I try to do in huddle. So here is the serve. Okay, this is the back end of a serving practice with her coach. I think they try to hit the ball high on the back fence to get the power going.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough to catch. It was one of the better examples.
Good.
So I'll just go through the stages quickly. This start is, I'd say, pretty good. When I watch courtside, I'd be quite encouraged by that start because she looks relaxed and focused.
Yep, all good.
Then moving smoothly into the release position that's just about eye level.
Yeah, not bad. Maybe a little low, but not bad. I mean, it's not an issue though.
Yeah.
And then, so that looks good.
Then this is the main thing, really, the loading.
Yeah, so see what's happened. She's already moved into that front leg. She never really got into the back leg at all. She sort of shifted straight away into that front leg.
That's really the thing that I'd like to look a little bit in huddle because I wasn't sure. She has loaded the right leg up to there, the back leg.
Yeah, she hasn't really loaded though. Watch how quickly she shifts into the front. So she starts to go down, but she immediately goes into the front leg.
Yeah, I can't see any twist really. So,
yeah, exactly. So that's not really loading the back leg. That's starting to go down, but as she goes down, she's going forward into her front leg.
Okay. Then from there into the cocking position. This is the bottom of the backswing. So on the next frame, she's already going up. I'm really looking at these videos from an injury prevention point of view when I look in a bit more detail. I'm not sure if there is any tightness around the shoulder area. So this elbow is maybe a little tight, maybe a little high because maybe of the tight pec muscles. I mean,
from this angle, it doesn't look bad. She's tip of the racket's pointing down to her right heel, elbows up. You may want to get the elbow up a little more if she can get a little more range there, but I wouldn't say anything there would be concerning from a tightness standpoint.
Okay, so acceleration is pretty good.
Yep. And she looks from here, she's opening up a little early as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you see that?
That is going to be a challenge. Contacts, you can't see it because it's kind of going, but it's just on the where that white beam is.
Yep.
Deceleration. I think she's turned her arm, so there is a long axis rotation.
Good.
I can see that the fingers have turned around to the side. And also there is evidence of that down at the bottom because that's the hitting side of the racket coming back into the view. And the finish is quite balanced. That looks pretty good, I'd say. So the thing I wanted to have a little look at is this loading phase. So I've used this photo of Justin Enan from your presentation as a, for comparison.
Yep.
So I pre-recorded this on my iPad just to make sure that the technology will work now. So here is me looking at whether there was any twist in that back hip. It looks like it's just going straight and down and a little bit forward. It's probably difficult to say from this angle, but I'm not sure. The shoulder line seems to be good.
Yeah, everything looks really good here. The only thing is she's shifting into the front leg too early. If she could hold her weight back a little bit longer, everything else will take care of itself. She won't open up as soon and things like that. So I would spend majority of the time working specifically on this aspect, stage 3, and getting the rotation into that back leg. You can see here she's shifting forward very early.
And that's really back foot serving.
Yeah, exactly. Back foot serving, rotating into the back foot. Exactly. That's what you want to focus completely on.
Okay.
Because everything else looks pretty good, just those areas.
Okay. So that's what it is. I played with Hoodle a little bit, so I've forgotten Justin, and I didn't realize it looks quite similar to.
Yes, it's a great model to use. Someone, very, very similar, So if you can get it closer to that, that would be really good.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Wonderful.
Mark.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was great.
Thank you.
Would Jared be available?
I've already gone. I think you mean James.
Oh, James. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Let me see if he's still here. He may not be. Yeah, I think he's jumped off. Okay, no problem. Fernando?
Yes, you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. All right, let me put it in. You see something or no?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is perfect. This is great.
All right, perfect. All right. Unfortunately, I don't have any video editing, but because of the circumstance, I had to ask one of the tennis coaches for a video of her serve. She came to me. I'm a strength conditioning coach. I'm not a tennis coach. I have a solid tennis background though, but my role with her is strength conditioning. She came to me a couple of months ago with shoulder issues. She had from a recent MRI has a really a little labral tear. She's about to commit to a school, but to my suspicion, the problem stems from here. That's why this was a perfect opportunity for me to learn a little bit more and hopefully share with you guys this video, see, get your thoughts.
Great.
And so here's the full speed. And now we'll go step by step. And just like from the course, I think everything stems from the loading. I think from the toss a little bit, but the loading, I think, is where everything is stemming throughout. I think she tries to do a good initial job to backload, but then I think once she's backloaded, she starts to shift forward right away. I don't know if it's because she tries to chase the toss.
Yeah, so I would start with the toss because she's very straight release. That arm looks like it's going straight at the net.
Yes, correct.
So if she released more to the right net post, that would help tremendously.
Yeah, and as you'll see later, she gets right away on Statue of Liberty position right away because of that as well. She's a very strong girl, so she kind of like is able to muscle through wrong positions.
Yeah.
But it's deriving on her shoulder issues, I believe.
Yeah, this is one of those ouch positions. You see this and you're like, yeah. There's a lot of things here. So the two obvious things here is she goes too deep in her knee bend, and she shifts way into that front hip early.
Yeah.
And then as a result, look how low her elbow is, which is she's trying to find range from her elbow because her back hip isn't loaded at all. It's all front hip loaded.
Correct. She tries to get it from somewhere else.
Exactly.
And she's I like the part earlier in the course that you mentioned. Unfortunately, she's a case where she's been told repeatedly to point the hip beyond after the baseline. So you can tell by the motion that she's like already trying to make the hip past the baseline. Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, she's forced everything into that front leg. Nothing on the back.
Like she's trying to get into the right position, but then she switches into this habit, and then she breaks it completely.
Yeah, and so see how low the elbow she is.
Let's unload in there.
Yeah, go back one frame. I just want to see just where is she at cocking. So she's pretty good at cocking. She does the best she can from that position to get pretty right in cocking, which is, that shows how good of an athlete she is.
Yeah, she has extremely great, I think even too good of ranges.
Yeah.
Because she can get to really good ranges. And I'd say she gets into too much range sometimes. Yep. So she kind of like abuses it. But now, of course, at 17 years old, she's seeing problems that she shouldn't have this early. And there you go.
Yeah, and she's way open.
Completely forward, yeah.
And collapsing at the core. And like you said, Statue of Liberty. And, she still probably hits a reasonable serve because she's a good athlete. But, yeah, it's all coming from her arm.
Exactly. And that's where everything is stemming from. Super weak, super espinados and all that stuff. But because she's that strong, she kind of like – that serve was a really good serve. But that's like you said before, she's going to go to college. Her volume is going to jump all the way up, and she's already going with a slight tear. So that's where each time I see her serve, I start sweating a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard part because, you can do as much off-court work as you want on the shoulder strengthening stuff, on the hips, on the core, everything. But if that serve is what she's doing 200 times a day, you can't strengthen her enough to overcome that.
And that's the main question here to see. You have obviously a lot more experience here. She has a very light. She's in the spectrum where she might not need surgery. when it's like very slight, but not the surgeon recommends no surgery. Let's try to see if we can strengthen. But for example,
most players don't need surgery. That's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Unless it's more than a 50% tear, surgery is not the best option. So most tennis players will have, if they get an MRI, they will have some type of tear in their labrum, but it's just if you want it less than 50%.
Correct.
So the question is, can you convince her coaches? Can you convince her to make those adjustments?
She's very coachable, very coachable. I think more the case, I think is fun enough is with the coaches, because she works with in an academy setting. It's not that she has one particular coach, she has a group of coaches. So, but this analysis with you and her and you virtually here, it helps me make a point, because unfortunately I think it's deriving from a little bit of coaching the wrong stuff. Because I think she's being coached the end result, where she's making where she's making contact and where she's landing, instead of how is it starting, how it's loading, and so that she's not getting it from the wrong places and eventually they're hurting herself.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's true. So yeah, I think we're on the same page with kind of the areas to work on. Then then you've got to negotiate with everyone involved on how you make that happen. Yeah.
Correct. You know how that goes. And then you see how good athlete she is. She has a good rotation. After
and that's why she probably serves okay, and that's why no one probably changed it.
And that's exactly what makes the case even hard to get through, because obviously she serves. They see a beautiful serve down the tee, and why change?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go, and that's the rest of it. But interestingly enough, for example, during this break, she lands a little bit more towards the left. See that?
Yep.
But interestingly enough, during the break, her pain was still lagging. So, for example, they found a court here in Florida. There's people with private courts. She has friends. She's been just hitting, not even serving, light overheads, and she still feels the pain a little bit, even though she's been doing rehab. We've been doing a lot of stuff. So that's where I'm afraid that the volume went down completely this month because of the quarantine, and we're still having that pain there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. It may, it may be too late, possibly. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully you can make some adjustments over the next couple months, keep working on it, and she'll be okay. But yeah, you never know.
Correct. That's a part there. Well, that's about it. Thank you very much, Mark. Always
Fernando, always great speaking with you as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, coaches, as well, for the other videos. That it's so many different levels. It's very highly instructive for somebody like me. So thank you all.
No, it is. That's the beauty about this. It's great to see good players, not so good players, beginners, not so beginner, high level. It's really
interesting. Use of coaches, which for me, the more I listen to coaches, the more I learn how to talk to coaches. So thank you very much, Mark, for putting this together.
Yeah, no problem at all. Okay. Jay?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
What? Help me. Sorry, I'm doing it. It's not.
Press it twice. You got to accept it. When you do share screen, you'll have to accept something. It'll probably, there you go.
You guys can't see it?
Yeah, we can. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, I'll play it in real time. The one on the left. Whoops, maybe not. Andy is a top 100 player. She's a senior in high school, going to college in the fall. Here's the other side in real time. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can hear you well.
Okay. Release. I would say that's her load.
Yep. So she's got a very traditional serve, which is a good thing. I mean, she had a lot of things right. The one, just hold it there. The one, if you can go back to load, yeah. So can you stop it there? Go back a little bit. Yeah, right there. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop. Pretty much there. Couple things. One, her foot's coming around a little bit, so you just may want to make that adjustment. And the big thing is she's what we call hyperangulating, where her elbow is behind the line of her shoulder because her hips haven't rotated at all. She's gone into a load, but her hips haven't rotated. You'd like her to rotate into those hips a little bit more clockwise into the right hip. So you'd rather the hips rotate and get in the position instead of how her elbow is being pulled back behind the line of her shoulder.
Is that a pretty easy change?
It is. All you're trying to do is just get her hips to rotate. Everything else looks pretty good. It's just rotate her hips. So her front hip would point to the right net post. Her back hip would pretty much point, if there was a gate on this court, it would point to that gate at the left back side of the court. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Is any of that because of her back foot coming up to the right a little bit?
Yes, because you can't really get in that position if that right foot gets around like she's doing. Yeah, then see what here. See how I can see the front calf? I don't want to see the front leg at all from this camera angle. I only want to see the back leg. Because she's opened up, I can see both legs, which tells us she's opened up a bit early. And look how much she's gone into her lumbar spine there. It's pretty excessive into her lower back. And that's because she's opening up a little early. So you can see here, she keeps opening up. She's got good range. I mean, you can see she was a good athlete. It's just at contact, she's very open. This is the Statue of Liberty. So, Rodolphe, you asked about this. This is exactly what we're talking about, where the arms sort of straight above the head. And this position is what we sort of don't want, because this is body's leaning a little bit and it's completely opened up. So that is all stems from that loading position. If you can work on that loading position and get that right, contact will look a lot better.
Okay.
But she's got a little bit of long axis rotation, but not great. You see how she kind of tries to get there, but doesn't fully get there? Like there, it's a flat release if you keep going a little bit. See, it's still flat, still kind of flat and trying to get there, but doesn't ever really get there.
And how come? What would the correction for it to get there be?
So you wouldn't correct that. You'd correct it earlier because you'd want her to be side on as long as she can be. And then when she stays side on, she's going to hit through that position better.
Okay.
But again, she's got a lot of things that you look at and you're like, yeah, you can work with that. There's not much to adjust. It's just a couple little things, and the biggest is getting the load right. So getting the load. So her hip angle's pretty good there. Like, see how she's dropping down into that back hip? The problem is she isn't twist rotated. So the two things I would work on with her would be keeping the right foot a little bit back so it doesn't come around so much. And it's not even major, but it's a little bit. And then the other thing is you want to twist rotate into those hips to avoid her, getting that elbow behind the line of the shoulder.
At this point, is there too much weight on the front foot?
A little bit, but not a huge amount. That's not the biggest issue right now. The bigger issue is she's not twist rotating. When you twist rotate, she'll put a bit more weight on the back leg naturally just by twist rotating. And that's the priority.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got unbelievable upper body range of motion. I mean, really, really good. So player like this should have a big serve. She looks tall. She looks like she should have a really good serve.
Yeah, she does have a pretty good serve. I would say it's probably one of the better ones, but I just felt like she wasn't rotating enough with her back hip.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Phil, if you're there.
Yep. Can you
Awesome.
hear me? Let me share my screen here. Yeah, desktop. Share. Okay, well, let's do this. Okay. Open. Sorry, one sec. For some reason, I have to grant access to this. It's not letting me.
You probably have to click on share screen and then accept it.
Yeah, it's just here, one sec. Here it is. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, can you see it now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So I have kind of two, but I'll try to go through them pretty quickly here. So this girl, she's 14, right on the left here, and been going over her serve. She's pretty tall for her age, decent serve, but I don't think she's getting enough power whatsoever. So here she gets into that loading phase.
Yeah, so most things pretty good there. The only thing is she's going a bit deep. You can see she's probably getting stuck at the bottom, I would guess, without seeing anything more. Just looking like how she did that she probably doesn't come out of that very explosively.
So there she kind of goes. And then like right
there.
there.
So she didn't really get into cocking. So she right here, one more frame. Yep, right there that's her cocking position, which doesn't really get into a full cocking where the elbow's pointing to the sky, tip of the racket's pointing to the right heel. She doesn't get there.
Okay. And that's
because she didn't come out of her legs quick enough. So she's already released fully from her legs and her upper body hasn't stored everything yet. So if you go to the next frame. See, that's really where, so she's got the range to do it, but she's past that point now.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, the one thing just as going through this course, I spent a couple of days with her on court, and one thing that I was trying to kind of do is to get her tossed just a little bit lower so she can kind of speed up the motion and get out of her load faster.
Did that work? How did you feel like that?
She was, yeah, I mean, there was a few times where she caught it correctly. It's just changing the rhythm of their serve, completely. So she's having a tough time to just kind of doing that. But when she did catch it, I could see that there was definitely a difference on the miles per hour on the serve.
And also tell her to try to say, don't use your legs, but still jump. That's a really good cue for many people that will help with that. Because if she just lowers her toss, but she's still trying to do the same type of knee bend and depth that she's used to, that's where the sinking goes all haywire.
Because I don't have the side version for her, but she does break a little bit. She doesn't do a good job of staying kind of keeping that line.
Yeah, you can see she's a little open. I wouldn't say she's excessively open there, but she's a little bit open. So you'd like to keep her side on a bit better, a bit more.
And there's
see how that head's going to the left? That's a sign that she was falling to the left quite excessively. But she's got, so she's got, trying to get to long axis rotation. So it's similar issues there. It's just trying to get her out of her load better and try to stay side on better.
Okay, sounds good. And then this is actually her brother. He's 17. I think he's actually quite close to having a world-class serve, hopefully. This is from the back. I'm having a hard time getting him to use his right hip, I think as you can see on the frame to the right. This is him kind of going. So, do you think that he's not using his right hip enough?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of stuff that could be improved. You can kind of see his right leg is collapsing, that knee valgus position. So that tells us that he doesn't like to push into that right hip. He's got really good range, though, which I think is why he probably hits it pretty hard, I would guess.
He does, yeah.
But he's not very efficient in his motion. Like because he goes a little deep in his knee bend.
Okay.
And he opens up. See how I can see his front leg there, his calf?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I wouldn't want to see that. I'd want him to be completely side on and see how he's got really good range, but that's why I think he can get away with some of this right now. But, look, his wrist range of motion, you can see he's really, really unique. Look, and right there. And then he gets into cocking, but he gets to cocking late as well.
Okay.
So we'd like him to get to cocking a little bit sooner. So he's already off the ground, really. And his elbow's not pointing to the sky yet. So, but he's got the range. It's right there. It's just it gets there a frame or two late.
In terms of him being side on, does he open up a little bit too much?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it, a little bit. So what you want to do is kind of fix his load and keep him side on. It's not going to take much with him because he's a great athlete. He's got great range.
And in terms of the load, do you recommend that he moves his right foot backwards this way to kind of get?
Yeah, I mean, that's a workaround, and we'll do that if his first 10 or 15 reps of trying it doesn't really work. Then you'll just move the foot back a little bit, and that'll get the rotation, that'll get the workaround. So it's nothing wrong with doing it. And you could do it from the beginning. It's just, it changes things for him from his mechanics and what he's always done. So you don't want to change too many things, especially at 17. But if you don't feel like he's getting it after 10 or 20 serves with this stance, then you can shift it 6 inches or so.
So you're saying pretty much, focus on keep the stance the same, focus on that right hip, making sure that there's more load on that back leg.
He's more stable through there. He looks very unstable through that right hip and right leg right now.
And the knee bend is just, it's too much. He's not able to get out of it quickly.
Exactly. He'll serve 3 to 5 miles an hour harder just by having less knee bend.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Let me know how that goes next time you see him.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Sounds good. Which Chris, I think, is the last one. So you're going to wrap it up if Chris is there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Can you hear me? Okay. Sharing screen. Do you see it or?
Yep.
Okay. You see the serves?
Great. Yep. How old are these players?
So the guy on the left is 12. He's a little small for his age. So he struggles. I'm sure there's reasons why with his serve. And the other guy's 13.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll start it up. This is the start on the left. And then that's the release right there. I think that's okay.
Yeah, that looks fine.
And then the load, he gets the foot around a little bit. I think that's the load right there. But I think it's, what do you think with the, I saw all these videos, so I also see that I think his right hip and leg could be a little more active there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I wouldn't say there's much there. The only big thing I would say is rotate into the right hip a little more. His elbow is a little behind his shoulder at that point, that hyperangulation. So just try to get him to rotate into that right hip just slightly.
Okay, I was thinking to try to get the hips more in line with the shoulder. Does that make sense?
Exactly. I agree with you. So they have to rotate it. The shoulders have rotated well, but the hips haven't.
Okay, got you. And then go to cocking. This is a second serve, so it's a little bit to the left. He's trying to do a kick.
Yeah, I mean, not bad. It's a 1 frame delayed. Like he hasn't fully released out of his legs, and so you've got to come out of his legs just a
Oh, there.
little bit quicker. Yep.
Oh, so push off a little quicker. Quick. And then I mentioned in one of the chats or earlier, I was wondering why the younger guys have trouble with the on contact keeping their wrist stable.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the guys. So he kind of, I don't know, from here to here.
Yeah, it's early, which is not a bad thing. I wouldn't worry too much about that. That means he's got a great long axis rotation. He does it just about at contact, though. So we got to get him through contact before he does that.
Okay, so he starts it a little early.
Yeah, so one tip, I tell him to finish with a higher elbow, and that'll stop him doing that so early. So he'll stay there and see how straight his arm is.
Yeah, okay.
He doesn't bend his elbow at all. If you say finish with a higher elbow, that'll allow him to come through the strike zone longer before he does that.
Okay, gotcha. All right, makes sense. And I'll just get to this guy quick because I know we're over time. So the guy on the right, that's his start. I think the release here is not bad also.
A little straight on, though. The problem, you see how he's releasing straight to the net strap?
It would be better if it was towards
to the right. It'll allow his hips to rotate. Because right now, I can tell right now he's not going to rotate into his right hip.
Okay, yeah, this guy, I picked two guys who really struggle with their serve. So.
No, it's great to see all the varieties because you can see how many varieties.
So there's his.
Yeah, because he's trying to do everything right. He just hasn't turned his hips, and he won't be able to because of how he releases it. You want to have him release towards the right net post, and that'll then allow him to rotate into his hips.
So that the release should take care of a lot of the rest.
Yep.
Okay. I think the rest is not bad. So that's the cocking, I guess.
Yeah, no, this is good because one more frame and it'll be right. Go one more frame, one more. Yeah, see, he's great. He's got unbelievably good range of motion there. Just needs to stay side on. He's going to start to open up a little early here.
Okay.
See how he's starting to open? See how he's opening, falling to the left? That's what you want to try to avoid.
But that might mostly be from the release?
Exactly. You fix the release, everything else with his motion should be pretty good because it looks good. I like his serve, actually. How what he does. He just has one component in the chain that's off a bit. You fix that, it should take care of it.
Okay, great. Thanks for the input, Mark.
Yeah, no problem at all. Urak, you want to share your screen quickly?
Yes, I would love to.
1 sec, I'll take it off.
Thanks.
Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so that's myself. I'm 55 years old. I haven't had any major improvement in myself probably over a year. And I've tried to work on my mobilities and ranges of motion, but with age, it's mostly kind of just the injury prevention. So I would like to see, like, I have a certain range of motion and I would like to optimize it, basically what I have in my body. So this is how the serve looks like in a real time. So if I go from the beginning.
Just what program are you using, just so folks could see? Is this Kinovia?
Yeah, this is Kinovia, and I've filmed the whole match here, and I just clipped it out from the match video and from Kinovia, so I could. Yeah, I'm using Kinovia, and I would recommend it for anybody who is just serving their own matches because it's free and one can get most out of it. So yeah, so it's a Kinovia, yes. So where we are, and on the left side, anyway. So here's my release. So I go through it. about there. So
yep, that looks okay.
That's okay. So I didn't put any major check marks on the release, like I was okay with it. So next one, we're going into the, this is kind of the, not yet, not yet, not yet. Somewhere here is the finish of the loading.
Yep. So you can see you're a little bit forward. All your weight, most of your weight's in the front leg. You really haven't bent your back knee. Your front knee's bent, but your back knee's quite straight. So that's an area that you can work on, is loading into that back leg.
So is it just a loading or is it a twisting as well?
Yeah, I mean, start with the loading for you. And then based on how that feels, then you go the twist as well. Because you want to do both, but you're so forward in your motion right now, you can't twist at that. You really have to go first into the back leg load and twist at the same time if you can.
Okay, and so, and how do I load more to that leg? Is it just because of the left hand, like kind of like a winding tree motion, or what puts, how do I achieve so I put more weight into
Yeah,
that?
so did you see the back leg serving videos, any of those?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so
I have.
work on those because that'll get you the feeling. The first thing you have to determine is if your back leg wants to do it. You have to decide, you know, it has to get that feeling. You've probably served like this for a long time, so it probably doesn't fully know how to load very well. So you need to teach it how to do that.
Okay, so the next one, it's, yeah, so I put into the checklist front hip excessive load, no knee bend, poor back leg load. If
Exactly.
I still don't analyze myself, so I just need to learn how to fix it.
Yep.
Then we go to caulking stage, which it's now it's kind of almost breaking up, you know, like.
Yeah, you don't really fully get to cocking. You're probably a little restricted, it looks like. Yeah, maybe a little tight, a little lack of mobility there.
Yeah, so it is, yeah, I'm, yeah, it is what it is, 55. I'm working on it, right? So this is probably what my body is capable at the moment. And in a caulking stage, I have identified poor side-on position, poor range of motion, the thoracic spine, elbow not pointing to the sky. So I have three check marks in a caulking stage. They needing improvement. So I don't know how would I go about it. This is just a physical exercising to work on my range of mobility or what?
Yeah, a little bit of this though is because of how much weight you've shifted forward. So that's one of the reasons why it's not, you're not getting into the exact positions right, is because you've shifted your weight forward so much. So now you really can't. So as long as you can work on stage 3, improving that, stage 4 and 5 should improve because of that.
Okay, so now we're going to the stage 5, acceleration.
Yep. And contact. Yep.
Acceleration and contact. So it's about my contact about there.
Contact's pretty good. It's just you're a little open. You know, you're a little bit open, and that's because you've shifted your weight in stage 3 very early. So if you can stay side on better, your contact location is fine. It's just your body should be side on right now. Instead, you've opened up a little bit too early.
Then an alternate, the acceleration. Yeah, is something there, not much. It could be improved. Along axis rotation.
No, it looks pretty good. I see the thumb come down, the racket turns. I think long axis rotation, I know it's a little blurry in there, but I think it's pretty good.
Then the acceleration phase. Yeah, so then in the finish, I'm landing a little on a left. This is where I, you know, so I came from there and, you know, just a touch on the left.
You kind of have to because you've opened up a bit early. So that's why the landing is going to happen because you've opened a bit early. So if you take care of the opening by staying side on longer and doing stage 3 a little bit better, then you won't land to the left like that.
So it is just a push off and split. So that's getting ready for the next shot. So what would be kind of like a 4 major adjustments, takeaways I can implement?
Yeah, so the first one is back leg load. trying to train that, do back leg serving, do some of those throwing drills, those off-court exercises that were listed in the module earlier. So those will help tremendously. The second is when you come out of that back leg load, stay side on, have your chest pointing to the right fence as long as possible. That'll make a big, big difference. And then stay in that side on position all the way through contact. If you do those three things, you'll see a big improvement in your serve.
Yeah, I was looking at what was available. There was this analysis, you know, like one could send a serve and get it analyzed, you know, with a whole month of coaching program. But then I look at it, well, I get to the court like maybe, you know, 3 times a week, and I just play like 4.045s and ITFs over 55. So I kind of thought it was almost overkill for me. Would you see any benefit?
I mean, it's one of those things. It depends on how much time you've got to practice. If you don't feel like you'll practice it, it's probably not worth it. But if you feel like, hey, I can actually spend, you know, 30 minutes 2 or 3 times a week working on it, then it would be worth it.
You think it would be worth it to get it?
Yeah, because then you can get on a program personalized with, you know, and there's some accountability there as well. You get your daily workouts, things like that. So you stay with it. Because that's the hardest part with all this is we know how to do it now. Now it's about how do we work through it and from that perspective.
Okay, I would like to show if I can one quick serve from the deuce court, which probably is going to be roughly probably about the same. This is my serve from the deuce court.
Yep, so it looks very similar. Deuce is always you're likely to open up just a little bit more even because of the deuce court.
So
but
here is the release, right? Where we are. Yeah, he's going to the load.
Yep. See how much weight shifted on that front leg?
So hold it back.
Yep.
Okay. So now cooking, it's
see how
really,
you see how you're already opening here? You're starting to turn your shoulders, starting to turn your hips.
Yeah, so
You've
there's
got to
not
stay
much
side on there as long as you can.
side on, and the elbow is, I have like a high end instead of the high elbow, like.
Correct.
So how would I focus on correcting?
So what you want to try to do there is try to get the racket to kind of brush the back of your head as you come down and point your elbow to the sky. That'll keep that position better.
So this is the contact.
Yep. See how you're open there a little bit? You got a slight bend in the elbow.
Yeah, and the finish and a split back, you know. So that's, so in your opinion, you know, focus on the mechanics. I know I need to do my flexibility. I have to do it mostly as an injury prevention at age 55 and increasing the range of motion.
Yep.
But yeah, and especially since I haven't had the improvement in the serve, it's been like, man, I think about a year I haven't improved at serve. And at the age 55 to go and compete, this fellow on another side of the net could be probably my son, age-wise. So I've got to improve my efficiency, you know, get something so I get the, let's say I get the forehand, my second shot, so I need to improve the serve. So
definitely there's some room there which you will be able to. So no, that was good. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, thank you kindly, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. Hey, I know we've gone like over an hour longer than anticipated and scheduled, so I appreciate everyone staying on the line. We're going to do a big Q&A in a couple days, and that's going to be on anything that we haven't covered, anything that you still got questions about. You'll have hopefully plenty of time to get some of that answered, and we'll be able to talk through that. So again, thanks everyone for joining. Look forward to seeing you in a couple days for the Q&A, and keep using the discussion tab in the course to ask your questions as well. So look forward to seeing everyone in a few days, and look out for the email tomorrow with the next modules information, just a PowerPoint that'll give you sort of some summary stuff, just again to review, to make sure everyone's on the same page, and then we'll get some really good Q&A in a couple days. So take care, everyone. Have a good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are.